Hey horror fans, welcome back to another review, and this time I'm doing a movie I should have done a long time ago. It's one of my favorite films, kind of goes with the last couple movies I've been doing, but it is a movie that was made in '86, but it didn't come out till some years later. I'm calling it an '86 film, and that is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. This is the 20th anniversary 2-disc special edition. And the thing about this movie is it is consistently ranked as one of the scariest movies of all time. Now, not in the same sense that, say, The Exorcist is. This is a really raw, visceral, realistic look at a week in the life of a serial killer. And not just any serial killer. This is a fictionalized account of the real-life Henry Lee Lucas. Now, Henry Lee Lucas was a serial killer back in the 70s. He turned himself in '85. And he was a bullshit artist. He confessed sometimes to 60 to 80 murders, or to 300, or to 600, or to 3 to 4,000. And, everyone knows he's pretty much full of shit. But by doing that, it kind of opened up a world of speculation of what he could have done. And that's where this movie comes in. Because this came out right after he, made headlines. He was always in the media for confessing to murder, especially ones he didn't commit. And his notorious partnership with fellow serial killer Otis Toole. And even though he doesn't go by the last... We actually don't even hear his last name or Otis's last name. It's just known that this movie is about those two. And sort of like... I would say this is more akin to The Lodger than, say... Monster with Charlize Theron, or the new Ted Bundy, Zac Efron film. There are some things that are real, like, for example, like the opening of the film, it shows Henry just driving around, eating at a diner, buying cigarettes, but then it always cuts to a dead body, and we sort of hear through distorted sounds what might have happened. And we see about 3 or 4 different ones, and there's one of a nude woman with orange socks. You don't hear a lot about it, but there was a real woman who was found naked with orange socks that is speculated to be one of his real-life victims. It was directed by John McNaughton, written by him and Richard Fire, and the music was by Robert McNaughton, I believe that's his brother, along with Ken Hale and Stephen A. Jones, and the music of this film is very haunting. It's a great sounding score. It really sounds like serial killer music. I mean, it's not like heavy metal or anything like that, it's just very eerie, kind of uncomfortable sounding, like the drum beats and piano, especially the main theme. Excellent score. And of course, Henry is played by a young Michael Rooker, who people would know. He was in Mallrats, he was in Slither, he was in The Walking Dead. Otis is played by Tom Towles, who was in Tom Savini's remake of Night of the Living Dead. He was in House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. Tracy Arnold, I'm not sure who she is, but she plays Becky. Now, in real life, Becky was Otis's 13-year-old, partially mentally handicapped niece, whom Henry had a sexual and abusive relationship up until her death. This, she's an adult, played as Otis's sister, and the romance is sort of played up in this. Again, it takes some of real life, but it's highly fictional. Especially with how this movie ends. Clearly that didn't happen. I'll just say Otis Toole died in prison in 96, Lucas in 2001, both of cirrhosis of the liver. So the ending didn't quite happen. But there's just some things in this movie that one of my more recent reviews was of Devil's Rejects. And in that review, I talked about how, especially the hotel sequence, feels like it's trying too hard to get under your skin. It's trying too hard to be disturbing and shocking. It feels more angsty than anything. This movie is disturbing and unsettling and uncomfortable flawlessly. This is a movie that doesn't have to go to further extremes, even though it does. Or it even doesn't have to go to like Human Centipede or Serbian film realms to be disturbing. You can be disturbing in a movie like this and have it be fully effective. This movie is disturbing. This movie is everything the Devil's Rejects wants to be. At least in my opinion. For the most part, we see the aftermath of his killings. But when we do see his killings, it is very, again, raw and visceral. And we don't really know much about Henry as a killer. It does play up his bullshit artist side. Like, Otis tells Becky that, they met in prison and he killed his mother. He tells her he killed her with a baseball bat. But when Becky asks Henry about it, first he says he stabbed her. It says Otis was wrong. It wasn't a baseball bat, I stabbed her. But then he proceeds to tell her the story of what happened, and he says he shot her. And she calls him out on it, and he's just like, oh yeah, that's what I did. But some of the backstory was right, His father losing his legs, his mother being insanely abusive, making him wear a dress, making him act like a girl, being a prostitute, bringing men over to the house with him, his brother, and his father home, making him wear a dress and making him watch, beating him if he didn't watch. That all is Henry Lee Lucas' backstory in real life. It doesn't show it, but it explains it to us. He was also the kind of person that did not like profanity. He didn't like to be talked down to. In fact, he would confess to murders in real life if someone used profanity, just because it would waste their time. And we see, like, when Otis talks back to Henry or uses profanity, he, kind of acts authoritative. Again, great fucking music. He brings Otis into his world of murder. And Otis in real life was an outright homosexual. Here, it seems to be a little closeted. Like, in real life, Otis used to get mad when Henry would indulge his sexual fantasies with others, dead or alive, man or woman. Here is just kind of hinted at. In fact, there was a deleted scene when Henry and Otis make out. They just didn't think it fit the film. All the performances are great. I mean, Michael Rooker, he has this stare. He's very haunting. He's soft-spoken, but you can tell when he gets angry or he gets that look, you can tell he's just gonna do some shit. Tom Towles plays a buffoon. He's not mentally handicapped the way Otis Toole was in real life, but he does play just a goofball, just a real a degenerate. And I mean, you get some scenes that are kind of silly, like this sort of black market TV salesman is giving them shit, so they stab him with like a soldering iron, then bust a TV over his head. And it shows how they used to just kill people. They pull over in traffic with the hood up. Someone stops to help and they just shoot them. Henry talks about how you always kill in different ways in different places, so they can't link your murders together. They were killers on the run. This film, they stay in one area, but you do get one scene of the home invasion. After they kill the TV guy, they also take a video camera. And it's a home invasion where, you know, Otis has the mother and he's ripping her clothes off and touching her, and Henry's filming it. The dad is tied up with a sack over his head and blood on it. The teenage son comes home. Henry fights him and kills him, still violating the mother. And it's not so much that they show it, but they show it on this 8 or 16 millimeter home movie. The shot is of their TV, so it's like and they're sitting on the couch watching it, so we're watching it with them. So it's like we're sitting watching their sick home snuff film with them, and it makes it feel dirtier, and it makes it feel more depraved than if it was just a regular scene in the film. Like the fact that it was their home movie and we're watching it with them, and then Otis even rewinds it to watch it again, and the camera just goes back to the TV and shows us a lot of it again. It is pretty graphic. I mean, is it as graphic as movies like, you know, the new I Spit on Your Grave, or Human Centipede 2, or a Serbian film, or any of those really over-the-top movies? From what you see, maybe not, but the way it's pulled off is very effective and very well done. The ending with this briefcase is extremely haunting. You know, we get the idea that Henry feels no positive emotions. She says, "I love you, Henry," and he's just, "I guess I love you too." They stop off at a hotel, and next thing we know is we see her briefcase covered in blood on the side of the road, with him driving off into the distance. And they wanted that kind of ending. They wanted that ending where it's just, okay, he just leaves. It doesn't say, you know, it doesn't end with him getting caught. It doesn't end with the closing caption of Henry Lee Lucas was caught and sentenced. You know, not your typical serial killer movie ending. It had an ending similar to Halloween. The killer is still out there. He's amongst us. He goes to diners. He has a job. He drives around. He's amongst us in society. This is a very effective horror movie. Even though much of it is speculative, it is still one of the better made real life serial killer movies. Because there really isn't much known about Henry Lee Lucas, other than the fact that what I've already explained, and the fact that he did kill his mother and do other things with her. He did kill 13, 14-year-old Becky, which, again, in this, she's an adult. And a lot of the scenes is Henry just driving around, watching people, following people. And, you know, like he sees this one woman go into her house, and then, you know, he has like this sprayer for something. I think it's like for bugs or for mold for his job. And then we just see him go back to the house. He goes inside. Then he walks out. But then we go inside the house and we see the aftermath of what he's done, with distorted sound effects of what might have happened. I like the idea that it's fictionalized around a killer that we don't know much about. And how it's done is incredibly effective. Again, this is a movie that is unsettling, that is uncomfortable. It doesn't have to try to go to the extremes that a Rob Zombie movie does. I know a lot of people think Rob Zombie movies are hardcore and tough and ugh. That's your opinion if you think so. I feel like he tries too hard. This movie doesn't try too hard. It does what it does, and it works tenfold. I'm a big fan of this movie. It did get a sequel. I haven't seen it. It also has a reversible cover. That's alright. I like the original cover, where it looks like this newspaper clipping with blood on it. But again, phenomenal performances, great score, and again, if you want to study on Henry Lee Lucas, I probably wouldn't watch this and then write a paper on it, or on him. This isn't really meant to be an account of his real life. Just the fact that there is so much open to speculation. And that's what this movie is built off of. But Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, great movie. It's ranked as one of the scariest movies of all time. Different than The Exorcist and stuff like that. In its own way, and it's for a reason. This is effective. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, great movie. And thank you for watching.